Today I'm bringing you some easy and creative dinner ideas from Stuffed Spuds. This book was originally published in 1982, and I'll talk more about it a little bit later. So yes, you've guessed it. These dinner ideas are all baked potato ideas. There are a lot of interesting ideas in this book, and I have often talked about a very beloved school lunch of mine. It was baked potato day, and you could either choose broccoli and cheese or taco meat to go on top of your potato. I love baked potatoes. I think they make an excellent side dish. Do them up with butter, sour cream. If you really want to go fancy, you can go bacon, cheese, chives, but I think they make a really good main dish too if you have enough ideas. You can put chili over the top of them, you can put stew over the top of them. There's so many ideas, and this book has even more than what I could come up with. But in order to make a dinner out of a baked potato, you need to bake a potato first, right? So I'm going to show you how I make baked potatoes. I've tried a lot of different methods for baking potatoes over the years. Growing up, we always wrapped them in foil and baked them in the oven. I've also tried making them in the slow cooker, and I've heard of people making baked potatoes in the air fryer. So this is just the method I personally like to use. And as always, if there's something that you like to do and it's the best way for you to do it, please do it that way. I'm not claiming that mine is the biggest or the best. It is the best for me specifically. So do what you like. We got 2 potatoes here. They're kind of like on the larger side, but not those jumbo ones that you can sometimes get in restaurants. These are just kind of a nice size. What I do, of course, after scrubbing them clean is I like to prick them with a fork just all over. And these are just russet potatoes. I don't think I said that. I just bought a bag of potatoes. Sometimes if I want like a nicer looking potato or it's for a nicer meal I'm making at home, I will buy those individual russet potato bakers. If I can't find a bag that has some nice sized potatoes specifically for baking. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So we'll set that aside. Now I have a bowl and I've put a little oil in the bowl. You don't need much. I'm gonna add just a little bit more. Just vegetable oil is fine. And I like to do this with one hand, so I have like one non-messy hand. I am gonna roll the potatoes in the oil just to get a thin coating. Like when you're breading chicken cutlets and you have like a wet hand and a dry hand, that's kind of what this is, right? So pardon me while I wash my hands. Clean hands. Now here's where I want to highlight a kitchen tool that I feel is completely overlooked. And that is a pan or a tray that you do not care about. I do wash it. I have given up trying to scrape all of this away. It has lots of dents and stuff, but I don't cook on this, okay? It's more of a drip tray. I feel like you should always have something like this to use for a purpose where maybe you're not gonna cook on it. But what I'm gonna do with it is I'm gonna put it in the rack underneath the potatoes because you're gonna get drippage. So we're gonna head on over to the oven. As you can see, I have preheated my oven to 400 degrees. I find that this is the temperature that works best for me. And now I'm gonna take this little drip tray and I'm gonna put it in the oven underneath where my potatoes are gonna go. Oh, by the way, I have a baking steel in there that I just keep in there all the time. And now I'm gonna put my potatoes in the oven. Potatoes in the oven, we're gonna close the door. I like to bake potatoes of that size for about an hour. Typically, I do like to check them about halfway through though. So I'll set my timer for 30 minutes, take a look at them, probably flip them over while wearing my UV glove, and then let them bake the rest of the way. My potatoes are almost done baking, so I thought I'd get started on this chicken Florentine stuffed spud. And the first thing I have to do is make this white sauce right there. It's the 3rd ingredient down, so it's always a good idea to check your recipes and see if there's anything you kind of need to make ahead of time. You know, it's not immediately evident that that's something you need to make in advance. If you've made a white sauce before, you know it's melted butter with flour and milk and maybe some seasonings. I'm kind of following the recipe for white sauce that appears in this book. She actually does include a lot of really helpful sauces and things in the beginning of the book, you know, things you might need to include in your baked potatoes. So I started by melting about a tablespoon of butter in a little pan. And to that I need to add just under a tablespoon of flour. And I'm gonna whisk that in. So my flour is all incorporated into that butter. You can see it's kind of bubbly in there. So now I'm gonna add half a cup of milk. I'm gonna whisk, whisk, whisk. And I'm also just gonna add a bit of salt too. And I'm gonna continue to whisk this and let it thicken up. All right, we have everything set up. Potato has cooled a little bit. I can touch it and it's not gonna ruin my hands. So here we go. It says cut a thin slice from the top of each potato, which I'm only making one. So I think what I'm gonna do, instead of just like shaving off the top, I think I'm gonna cut it down the middle lengthwise. So I have two little potato cups, just to make it easier on myself. And also I do wanna refrigerate half of this and eat it later. This is a big week for baked potatoes, let me tell you. Yeah, there we go. And I have to scoop out the potato flesh. And this is like my favorite spoon to do stuff like this with. It's like a serving spoon, but the reason I like it is because the edge is just slightly sharp. It's a little bit thinner, a little bit sharp. It's perfect for something like this. So I'm just gonna scoop the pulp out and remove it to a bowl. And you wanna leave a bit of a layer of potato in there because we're gonna reuse these shells. I've also left my oven on and I set the temperature to 350 degrees because we're gonna mix all this together and then bake it in the potatoes. So you do wanna make sure that your oven is on. So I have 2 little potato boats basically, and I'm gonna place those in a 1-quart casserole dish. Perfect size. It's like the perfect size for this. And I'm just gonna set these aside and put them on the stove top just because I want them to stay warm. So we have this lovely bowl of potato. I'm gonna add some things to it to make it taste really good. To this pulp, I'm adding some cooked chopped spinach that I've drained. I used frozen spinach. You could cook fresh if you would like. And I also have some shredded chicken. This is from a rotisserie chicken. I actually needed cooked chicken for several recipes this week. That's kind of perfect because it's well seasoned, it's quick, you know, and you get a good amount out of one rotisserie chicken. And I have the white sauce that I just made and some mozzarella cheese. And I just have a tiny bit of nutmeg and a tiny bit of pepper. It says white pepper. I don't typically have white pepper on hand. And I'm gonna mash it all together. Now I did notice it said to mash the potato first. This is gonna be fine. You don't have to get this so smooth that it's like Thanksgiving mashed potatoes. I'm just gonna go in with my spatula for a little bit of a final mix. And that potato pulp is so soft that it is actually kind of like mashing on its own in here without a potato masher. Before I move on, I think I wanna taste this mixture. There's no additional salt in there. You do garnish the tops of the potatoes with some Parmesan cheese. I think maybe this could benefit from just a tiny bit of salt, but we'll see. I'm just gonna add a pinch. Okay. That is pretty well combined, I would say. So it's time to bring our potato shells back in. And I'm gonna put this mixture into the potato shells. You've added a lot of good things here. So the mixture has grown. It has gotten larger. You're gonna end up heaping this mixture into the potato shells. It's gonna kind of overflow a little bit. And finally, I have some finely grated Parmesan cheese, and I'm gonna sprinkle that on top of the potatoes. And I think these are looking beautiful, but they're gonna look even better after I bake them for 15 minutes at 350 degrees. There's my chicken Florentine stuffed spud half. It smells so good. And I think this is such an interesting combination. I mean, of course, it makes a really good combination on its own, but it's not one that I would have thought to put in a potato. To be honest, there's a lot of things in here that I would not have thought about putting in a potato. I'm gonna cut it in half. I did end up baking this for about 5 minutes longer. So I baked it at 350 for about 20 minutes. Oh, it's creamy. It smells so good. That's really good. Oh my. I'm gonna cut some of the skin too and eat that. It's flavorful, it's good. So I set the other potato half aside. I'm gonna refrigerate it and then reheat it tomorrow for lunch probably. And I'm really interested to see how well this reheats. I think it has potential to. And if that's the case, I think some of these potatoes might actually be really good for like a weekly meal prep. So actually, I'm really excited about all the potatoes, but this one is a pizza potato and I love pizza. Even when pizza is just okay or not, maybe not even great, like it's still pizza. Okay, so this is kind of a different one for me. I'm not gonna cut open the potato and like stuff it. You actually cut it and then you flatten it. So, I'm gonna just cover up my hand with an UGG glove. This is still hot. I used just my regular baked potato method, you know, and I left the oven on because once we have this all dressed, it's gonna go back in the oven for about 15 minutes. The first thing I have to do is cut my potato in half lengthwise. There it is. Okay, so I had to read this a few times. Using a knife, cut slits about 1/2 inch apart in the edges of the potato shells and flatten the potato halves to form the bases for the other ingredients. Place shells on a cookie sheet. Okay, I get what they mean. We're gonna cut little slits kind of like through the whole thing. So it's kind of like when you're cutting a sewing pattern or you're cutting fabric to make something. Like if you're on a rounded kind of edge, you have to cut slits. They're like little relief cuts so that this can actually flatten out the way that they're saying. Probably not gonna look perfect, but I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna eat it anyway, because I'm sure it's gonna taste good. I might actually just transfer these over before I think I'm just gonna flatten them on the sheet. It's gonna be easier, I think. And it's still pretty warm, but like not so hot that I can't touch it a little bit. We're gonna shift around. I have a cookie sheet, a baking sheet, a sheet pan. Can I touch this? Yeah, yes, okay. It's not cold, it's still warm, but it's definitely like, it's okay for me to pick it up. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing to this other one. So let's get you out of the way. I don't think I need this anymore. It says to flatten them. Trying to decide what I wanna use. I could take the cutting board and use that. Doesn't really say that part, it just says flatten them. Flatten the potato halves. Okay, let's just try some things. We're gonna try this, because I already used it to cut open the potatoes. If it sticks too much, I'll just scrape it off. Okay, where's my bench scraper? Fix it a little. We'll just fix it a little. Yes. Oh, the inside of this is perfect. It's soft. This is gonna be great. This is another one of those days where I'm making this as a late lunch. We got 2 flat potatoes here. Using a fork, work 1½ teaspoons of the olive oil. Let's see, the olive oil, the cheese, the oregano, and pinches of salt. I mean, these look really kind of, I'm impressed with how flat they are. It said you could use margarine or olive oil. I went olive oil because that's what I got. So we're just gonna drizzle, and I need to like mash it in here. I might have gone a little enthusiastic on flattening these. So I also have some Parmesan cheese, finely grated. And I'm cutting this recipe in half because I don't need 4 potato halves right now. I'm gonna make baked potatoes all week long, basically, for this video. Dried oregano. They're generous. They are generous on this oregano. I'm not gonna use all of it. And some pinches of salt and pepper. It's basically a 2-taste kind of thing for this. I'm gonna mash that in and just kind of mix it a little. Okay, I wanna smooth it a little because I have more stuff to go on here. Spread pizza sauce on top of each base. There is a recipe for pizza sauce in this book. You can use, you know, if you want to make it yourself, or you can use your favorite. I'm using my favorite jarred kind. It's this one, Murray Hill pizza sauce. This is my kind of like my favorite that I use on just like my general pizzas. I actually use this to make my Detroit style pizza as well. This is gonna be good, you can tell. They do not skimp on the toppings here. This is a pretty sizable potato. It's not massive. Hold on, I gotta show you this bag of potatoes I bought. I got 2 massive potatoes. Yeah, it's not like these monsters. You can see like next to them to see. This is what I would say is kind of like a normal size for a baked potato. Maybe a little bit bigger, but not these. These are huge. I'm gonna use these for something else. Okay, so I've got my sauce, and now I'm gonna go some mozzarella cheese. I have whole milk mozzarella that I've grated myself. And the recipe actually stops here, but then of course, this is a pizza. So it suggests at the end of the recipe, you can add additional toppings, like whatever you like on a pizza. I am gonna keep it pretty basic. I'm just gonna add some pepperoni, but you can add whatever you like, mushrooms, olives, green peppers, sausage. And I cut my pepperoni into tinier pieces. I just kind of thought it would look better. It would like kind of fit the potatoes a little bit better. I have my pizza potatoes ready to go into the oven at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. Wow. All right, we're gonna try to film in the dining room again. I just wanted to like actually sit down and try this. It's not something that's like very easy to pick up, like pizza, so I'm gonna use a knife and fork. But it has all the pizza flavors, so there's no way this can't be delicious, right? It's still very hot. I have let this cool, but it's hot. It is good. It is delicious. It's pizza potato, so yes, of course. The pepperoni that I used is the cup and crisp pepperoni. So you can see that it kind of like curled up a little bit. That's the kind of pepperoni I use in my Detroit style pizza. So that's like what I keep on hand, but it was a good choice in this case. I like that I cut it up into smaller pieces. I think that was a good decision too. It's like texturally interesting as well, because of course this is like not a solid piece of crust. There's like the sort of mashed potato almost underneath, and it's really tasty. Yeah, we're gonna have another bite. This is a good idea. This is a creative idea, because I wouldn't normally think to put pizza toppings on a potato, but it makes complete sense to me. For my final recipe, I am going to be making this potato relleno. And I thought that quite possibly this is the most interesting of the 3 recipes. And admittedly, there is a step in this where I would not normally get this fussy for something like this, but I absolutely love chili rellenos. And if you don't know what that is, it's a roasted poblano pepper. Usually the ones that I've had are poblano peppers, and they're stuffed with cheese and then dipped in this like flour and egg mixture, kind of a batter, and then fried. So delicious. So I knew I had to try this one just because like I've never quite seen anything like this. I'm gonna remove the pulp of this potato. All right. Placing my potato halves into a small casserole dish, another 1 quart. I'm just gonna set those aside while I prepare my potato mixture. Mash potato pulp and add the chicken stock. So I have a little bit of chicken stock. This is actually homemade chicken stock. I love making chicken stock in my Instant Pot, and I'm trying to prepare for the holidays because I tend to use a lot of it. The holidays and winter in general, because you're making a lot of soups and things, but you can use store-bought chicken stock too. It's absolutely fine. Getting a head start on Thanksgiving. And the grated Monterey Jack cheese and chopped chilies. I'm cutting this recipe in half, so I am only gonna use like half of this can. We'll reserve the rest for something else. These are just chopped green chilies. And I have a little bit of cumin and a bit of salt as well. And normally the recipe is written with stop right there, but there's a little variation at the end that says you can add chicken to this mixture, which is what I'm gonna do. I still have rotisserie chicken. So I thought that would make it, you know, a little heartier. And that potato pulp, very soft. So it is just kind of mashing on its own. I didn't even bother to use my potato masher this time. And aside, so I'm gonna put my mixture back into the potato halves. This was in another instance where the author wanted you to like take some off the top, like open up the potato, but keep it intact. I am cutting it and doing it this way just so it's a little bit easier to store and reheat. Not able to eat this whole thing in one sitting. I suspect that it will be just fine. I have my potatoes, and now I'm going to move on to the next step, which is the step that I thought was a little fussy, but hopefully worth it. So I have an egg that I've separated. I've put the yolk in here, I've put the white in here. I didn't get my hand mixer out because I'm gonna need a hand mixer. We're ready. While I'm working on this step, I actually do have to bake these potatoes, these potato shells, at 400 degrees for 10 minutes. Okay, while my potatoes are baking, we're gonna make this egg mixture. I have my egg white in this bowl because you're gonna beat the egg white until it's like foamy and maybe not stiff peaks. Stiff but not dry, it says. There we have it. It took me a little under 2 minutes to reach this point, and I know that because my mixer actually has a timer on the top, which is amazing. Also, it just does this so quickly when you have those like whisk attachments. All right, so I have that done, and now I have my yolk. So I need to beat the yolk up a little bit until it's smooth. Then I'm gonna fold it into that. Fold it in the yolk. All right, I'm bringing my potatoes back out because I have to spoon this mixture over the top. And this is enough egg mixture for 2 full-size potatoes. So I may go a little, heavy on the egg mixture. I don't really want to waste it, but it was not something I could easily cut in half. This makes me feel very fancy indeed. Okay, wow. Oh my gosh, look. So now I have to put these back into the oven until the tops get nice and brown. I have no idea how this is gonna taste, but I sure do love how it looks. It also has this like really nice toasty scent to it. That was my timer. Okay, but you know, I just gotta dig in, right? We're gonna find out. That's the only way to find out. Interesting. Yeah, the outside fluffy egg thing definitely reminds me of chili relleno. I believe how you do it is you like roll it in flour and then you dip it in basically that egg mixture that I made, and then you fry it. We'll see if this gets kind of close without actually having to fry something. That's really good. Oh no. That is so good. Delightful. All of the flavors. It's definitely like a chili relleno. Oh my gosh, how fun is this one? Now I don't know how this is gonna reheat either. I feel like that egg is gonna start deflating on the other half, but I kind of don't care. It tastes really good. Stuffed Spuds was published in 1982, and it is one great big celebration of the humble potato. Now, potatoes are a great source of vitamin C and potassium, as well as dietary fiber. And I've before heard this myth that all of the vitamins and nutrients are all in the skin, and that is just not true. The skin is great for you. That is where half of the dietary fiber is, but the potato flesh itself actually contains the vitamins, the minerals, etc. On top of that, they are filling and they are inexpensive, and you know, they make a great meal or side dish, but in this case, we're talking about potatoes as the main part of your meal. I wanted to read this little excerpt that's on the inside of the book jacket. The potato has gone gourmet. Here are 100 diverse, nutritious, exciting recipes for turning the world's most popular vegetable into a satisfying meal in itself. Yeah, I totally agree. It goes on to say, high in vitamins, minerals, and fiber, these one-dish meals can be simple or elaborate, economical or extravagant, low-cal or sinfully self-indulgent. So it really depends on what you do with the potato. We say baked potato in the US. In the UK, that is known as a jacket potato. I kind of feel like maybe jacket potatoes / baked potatoes are a little bit more common as like a main dish over there. I remember growing up that you could sometimes find like food court restaurants or standalone restaurants that specialized in baked potatoes with lots of different toppings. If I'm remembering correctly, like they kind of come and go. Even very recently, there was one that opened nearby, like near where I live. They opened a new location and unfortunately it did close. So they still have another location elsewhere. But it's just one of those things that I'm not sure if it always catches on. But it catches on to me. I love a baked potato, and I think it makes a great lunch or dinner. And I was so excited to find this book because I wanted some new ideas on what to do with baked potatoes. And this has a lot of them. So the book actually starts, it's got helpful hints and introduction, but they have some basic recipes and ingredients. And I touched on this briefly as I was making my baked potatoes. There's a method for how the person who wrote this book, Jeannie Jones, how she bakes potatoes. Mine differs slightly. Do what you like. If you found a method that works for you, please do that. She talks about making chicken stock. I've got white sauce, hollandaise, pizza sauce, things that you might need for some of these particular recipes. And of course, use the kind that you like. If it's store-bought, if you have your homemade pizza sauce or hollandaise or whatever, do what you like. But she does actually include that in here, which I think is very nice. The chapters are divided into different categories. So we have egg and cheese spuds. There's a vegetarian quiche spud, a tofu stuffed spud, potato cheese souffle in spuds. I kind of love how she's just calls them all spuds. There's even this one that is the banana breakfast spud. And I briefly considered making that. I don't know. I'm not there yet. If you like a sweet baked potato, that is, an actual, not a sweet potato, but like a regular russet baked potato that is sweet or that you eat for breakfast, let me know. I'm curious. It's not something I've ever tried before. There's a fish and seafood chapter. So I'm thinking like tuna. We've got dilled fish stuffed spud amandine. That is so many words. That is quite the title for a recipe. Crab and Swiss cheese spud. I'm sure that's very tasty. Unfortunately, I can't have that. Lots of things, shellfishy things in here that, I'm sure they're delicious, but they're not for me. Speedy clam spud. Seafood stew spud. There's a lot of S's. It's a lot of alliteration. There's a chapter on poultry stuffed spuds. Chicken and turkey, and I think that's it. I didn't see any like duck or anything. Maybe I missed it. Turkey vegetable spud. That would be actually something good to do with leftover Thanksgiving turkey is, make this mixture to put in a potato or on top of a potato. I feel like people are always looking for new ideas on what to do with their extra holiday turkeys. Oh my gosh. This word, it's eclectic salad in potato pockets. And as I was reading it, I read it as electric salad What is an electric salad? Now I need to make one up, right? White chili bowl spud. You know, you don't necessarily have to follow the recipes in this book. If you have leftovers that you think would go well with a potato, put them on top of that baked potato and there's dinner, really. And I think you can make some of those types of things ahead of time. Maybe you've made some extra chicken pot pie filling. I do that sometimes. I like to freeze it. If you don't feel like making a chicken pot pie, how good would it be to put that over a nice baked potato? That sounds great. I tend to gravitate toward the same things when I'm making baked potatoes. You know, that broccoli cheese from my childhood. I loved a broccoli cheese potato. Taco meat was another one that I mentioned in that much beloved school lunch that I used to eat. I tend to think of the same things over and over, and this book is very inspirational when it comes to ideas on what you can do with baked potatoes. Sadly, there are no illustrations in this book. I know, other than this cover. And there is a photograph of the author, Jeannie Jones. I'm saying Jeannie, I think that's what it is. It says, Jeannie Jones is a leading writer and lecturer in the diet field and a consultant for recipe and menu planning for several health organizations, resorts, and restaurants. She is the author of numerous cookbooks, including the fabulous Fructose Recipe Book and the Calculating Cookbook. I don't think I have either of those in my collection, so this is the only Jeannie Jones book that I seem to have. This book has so many ideas in it, lots of things I never would have thought of. Moussaka stuffed spud, as well as, what is this one, a BLT stuffed spud. Wow. But let's talk about the recipes I made today. They were very good. I was very pleased. So I kicked things off with a chicken Florentine stuffed spud. Wow, it was delicious. The chicken Florentine mixture inside that potato was so good. It was very, very flavorful and different. Of course, different. You know how I like something that's a little different. The chicken, the spinach, the cheeses, whites, everything just went so well together. And I think I touched on this while I was making it. It seems like this might be a good one to do for a meal prep. You might even be able to like make these a little bit ahead of time and freeze them. I haven't tried that, but I might, because I've made like twice baked potatoes where you scoop all the potato flesh out and you mash it with like cheese and sour cream and bacon and chives, all the yummy stuff. And then you put it back in, and you can usually freeze those for a certain amount of time and then just take out what you need and bake them in the oven. So that one, very tasty. I liked it a lot. And the second recipe I tried was the pizza potato. And when I initially picked this recipe, I didn't realize that it was like you flatten the potato and you make like almost a pizza crust out of that baked potato. I was just thinking you put pizza toppings on top of your potato, which is definitely another way you can do it. I was very happy that she explained the process of flattening the potato very thoroughly, like putting those cuts around the edge made total sense to me. If you've ever sewn, like I used to sew quite a bit in the past, you do have to, like when you're sewing like curved things together, you need to make those cuts to sort of give things space, to spread out. And that's the same thing you do with this potato. It worked out so well. I loved that there was a little bit of like extra seasoning and stuff in the potato flesh itself. I think that added a lot of good flavor rather than just putting everything on top. If I did this again, I would definitely put some more pizza toppings on there. The pepperoni was really good, but pepperoni and mushroom is probably my like top pizza. I do love black olives as well. Peppers can be very good. So, the possibilities are endless here. Just put whatever pizza toppings you particularly like on top of this potato. And finally, this was to me the most interesting recipe, the potato relleno. I said that really Midwestern. The potato relleno. Still Midwest. I'm from Ohio. This is how I talk. So I thought this was the most creative recipe of the three that I chose. I love chili rellenos. It's one of my favorite dishes to order when it's on the menu somewhere. It's a roasted pepper, like a poblano pepper that is stuffed with cheese, and then it's got this like egg batter on the outside, and you fry it, and then usually it's served with like a zesty tomato sauce. So good, so delicious. Not something that I really make myself. It's kind of a treat for when I go to a restaurant and they happen to have it. But this was really good. It, didn't taste exactly like a chili relleno, but it got close. I thought the execution on this was very interesting too, where, you whip up the egg whites and you fold in your yolk and put it on top, and then like you can broil it, or I just baked it. That kind of replicated that eggy batter that you find on a chili relleno. Very cool. Very cool. Like I said, not exactly the same, but it got close and I was pretty happy about that. Adding the chicken was really good. The recipe itself, just like straight through, it's without the chicken, but then in the list of variations at the end, it says potato chicken relleno. And that kind of beefed things up, chickened things up. It made the potato more substantial and more like a main dish. Really happy with this one. I was so glad to find this book and add it to my collection, and so excited to try some of the recipes. So there you have it, 3 baked potato-based easy dinner ideas. If you love cookbooks and recipes from the 1980s, I have an entire playlist and I'll link it in the description down below. I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join us over there, I'll leave a link in the description so that you can do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.